Welcome to the Mind Behind the Curtain podcast, a show about the stories of incredible physician entrepreneurs who've navigated the chaos, doubt, and growth that comes with creating something new. In each episode, we'll pull back the curtain on their journeys, sharing the triumphs and struggles that led them to where they are today. I'm your host, Jenny Ekstrom, a physician, entrepreneur, and mentor. Let's take this journey together. It's time to explore the mind behind the curtain. Well, hello, and welcome to Mind Behind the Curtain podcast. I am so excited today to introduce you all, if you've not met her, to my dear friend, Elaine Stoggerberg. I have had the privilege of knowing her for the last 9 years as an investor, as a mentor, and as a friend. And it is truly my honor and privilege to have her join us with us today. Dr. Stoggerberg is a psychiatrist trained at Mayo, a real estate investor, a mother of 5, owner with her husband, Nick, of Black Swan Real Estate, and mentor to numerous physicians. So, Elaine, it is so great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I can't believe it's been 9 years. Wow, time just flies, doesn't it?
It truly does. It truly does. As I think about how the online community has shaped me as a physician and how I have gotten to interact with people with whom I'm sure my life never would have crossed paths, it's such, what word am I looking for? It's just been a gift.
And I think a sweet space is what comes to mind for me.
It's, all of those things. I remember, I think the first time I met you was through a Facebook group. I think it was the physician real estate investor group. And I had decided to outsource some real estate investment I wanted to do. And not only did you respond, but you jumped on a Marco Polo with me. And when I think about how young you were at that time, I think you had 2 children at that time. So it's just been fun. So as our audience may not know you as well as I do, I'd like you to maybe just share a little bit of your story, maybe of your medical background, that real estate piece, and really where you see yourself today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me here today. Excited to be together. So as you mentioned, I'm a psychiatrist by training. I trained at the Mayo Clinic. I still live in Rochester, Minnesota. And my journey through medicine and through real estate investing was a little winding. So it really goes back into my childhood. I had a pretty difficult childhood. Unfortunately, my mother was never really involved in my life. My father unfortunately struggled with alcohol addiction. Eventually that morphed into an opioid addiction because of pain medicine. And then he ultimately died of a drug overdose. And just as you can imagine, there was just a lot of financial turmoil in my childhood as a result of those things. And in my early adulthood, I didn't necessarily know how to handle money, but I knew what I didn't want. I knew the pain, right, that money had caused in my childhood. And I knew that I wanted something very different. And so when I met my husband, Nick, he had a pretty similar upbringing in terms of, financial struggles in his family of origin. And we both knew that we were in, high paying careers at that time. Nick had a career in tech. I was starting in my medical school journey. So we had, some sense that we would have, stable, high paying careers. But we wanted something more than that. We wanted like real financial stability. And we didn't quite have the language for it, right? In terms of like financial freedom and time freedom and those sorts of things, the language that we have now. So what we did was we went to as many people as we could who were a generation ahead of us, because we didn't know, our parents couldn't teach us how to handle money. So we had to go to other people. So we went to like coworkers or parents of our friends or just anyone we could get who was a generation ahead. And we would ask them all sorts of things like, how do you create an amazing marriage? How do you raise your children? And then we would ask them money questions. And we heard time and time again that people were investing in real estate. They would say things like, well, it looks like I make my money from being a physician or an attorney or owning this business, but really what I do is I then take those dollars and I invest in real estate, and that's where our wealth has come from. And so we decided even before we got married that we would be real estate investors. Our first rental property was the home that I lived in. We both owned homes before we got married. We kept my property, turned it into a rental property, moved into his home. I started medical school at that same time. We bought our next property a couple of years later. We paid only $35,000 for it. It had been vacant for 9 years. We did most of the renovation ourselves. Like things today, when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, we were so willing to just do really crazy hard work to start this real estate investing journey. And then, kind of fast forward, I matched to Mayo. We moved to Rochester. We kept building our portfolio. Eventually, we started working with private investors. I finished residency. The pandemic happened during that time. I'm sure maybe we'll get into some more of these various milestones. Nick stepped away from his technology career to run our real estate portfolio full time and to really scale it and work with investors and build out a property management arm in 2019. I stepped back from medicine in 2020, largely as a result of COVID, right? We had 3 children at that time. It just seemed like every day I was getting a phone call that one of the kids, had had an exposure and couldn't go to school and those sorts of things. And so I said, you know what, we have financial freedom from our real estate portfolio. Why don't I just step back for a while, let this vaccine come out, let this pandemic settle down? And as it turns out, we just kept growing the company, and I haven't returned to clinical medicine since then. Um, and so somehow I have this life where I'm a Mayo Clinic trained psychiatrist with, as you mentioned, now 5 children, running a real estate company with about 400 million in assets and serving about 500 passive investors.
That is amazing. And I love how in 4 minutes you explained like this incredible journey. And yet there are a couple of things that really stood out to me along the way. So the first was knowing that you needed to find mentors and to find examples around you to fill in some of those blanks that maybe you didn't receive in your upbringing. How has that impacted how you now approach folks that come to you asking the same questions?
Yeah, I am just this big believer that the whole point of life is relationships. And I spend a lot of my time these days doing investor relations. I have a coaching program where I work with physicians. And for me, that's what really keeps it interesting, right? Is helping people along their journey. Um, Especially things like money, right? We all carry these stories from our childhoods, from our cultures, our gender, right? You name it. We have all sorts of money stories. And yet, I think we're all really looking for the same thing, right? We're looking for financial security, financial freedom, ultimately time freedom, ultimately impact freedom, right? The ability to spend all of our resources the way we want to, the way that's aligned with our values, whether that's our time, our money, our expertise, how we earn income, right? What we're doing in our profession. And so just helping people along that the journey there, allowing people to ask questions, giving them suggestions, asking high quality questions back to them to say, have you thought about this? Or, do you think that this is possible for you, right? Showing people like an example of what is possible. I love the paradigm. I don't know where I learned this. I wish I could give credit. I think it's maybe a bit of a universal truth, but I'll share it here that we should spend about a third of our time being coached, right? Receiving coaching. So when Nick and I both stepped away from technology and medicine, the very first thing we did was hire multiple coaches. We said, you know what, if we're going to grow this business and we're now going to be completely, entrepreneurial, like we need to have people guiding us along the way. So spend about a third of the time being coached, spend about a third of your time with peers, learning from each other, learning together, kind of growing together, and then spend about a third of your time coaching and helping others, kind of reaching that hand back and saying, hey, I've walked this path, I've kind of cleared the path for you. And when I think about that third, I know for me personally, that has created such a beautiful, rich life where I feel like people are pouring into me and I'm growing. I have a great group of peers that I'm growing alongside, and then I'm reaching back and helping others in that, in that path that's already been cleared for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I've gotten to watch that journey in you along the way. One of the things that think can be a limiting belief for physicians is that ownership of what I know being valuable to others and really owning that identity. When did that happen for you?
I think some of that comes from, you know, I'm trying to think of kind of how to conceptualize this. So I was legally emancipated when I was 16. And that was a big turning point in my life, right? So I like stepped into adulthood much younger than my peers. And so I had handled things like moving into an apartment, getting a credit card, getting a driver's license, right? Some of those things like pretty early on in my development. And early in my journey, I was able to see that, hey, maybe I started with way less than my peers, right? I didn't come from a stable home. I didn't come from a home that had a lot of money, but I had learned some lessons, right? I had done things like signed a lease for an apartment or purchased a car or gotten a job or those sorts of things like earlier than my peers because I was emancipated when I was 16. And so people, my friends were able to come to me and say like, well, how did you do this? Or how did you do that? And just very early on having experiences where I could see that the things that were hard for me or the things that were a struggle for me, or even, even to go so far as to say the things that were painful for me, right? Like, make no mistake about it. It is painful to be emancipated at 16, right? But I could use those things not only to create goodness in my own life, but to make it easier for other people. And I was able to sort of see, not that I would like purposefully seek out the pain, but the pain was going to happen, right? Life is full of pain all of the time. That's just a natural truth of life. The sooner we accept it, the sooner we have a better life. I could make meaning out of the pain by creating something good in my own life and then trying to share that information with other people to minimize pain in their life, if that makes sense.
Hmm. That's make meaning of the pain. And I mean, that in and of itself is, I mean, just even say that and to own that as your own is something that not everybody achieves. So when did this whole language around freedom, of time freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, when did that become a part of your language that now is so ingrained in everything that you do?
I would say it was very much an organic evolution. I don't remember any one big bang moment. I'll say what I experienced was, as I mentioned, early in my own development, as when my husband and I were dating, when we got married, as we were starting to have children, we really focused on financial security.
Mhm.
Early on for me, I was very rooted in security, very rooted in like hoarding things, right? I even remember like, when I was very young, the very first thing I would do when I would be paid is I would go fill up my gas tank, right? Because I would feel like, okay, I have money and a full gas tank. So really focused on financial security. And then over a while started to evolve into this idea of financial freedom. And we were building our real estate portfolio as I was in medical school, as we were having children, and starting to like have a like real lived experience that in our professions, we could only continue to earn income if we continued the profession.
Mhm.
But that in our real estate portfolio, we could earn income kind of around the clock, right? Through the rental income, the cash flow, the debt pay down, the forced depreciation, the market appreciation. So really starting to have this idea of financial freedom. And then when I when we started working with passive investors, and really when I stepped away from medicine and I stepped into Black Swan real estate full time, the role that I have always had in Black Swan real estate is working with investors, right? I kind of work with investors, I raise the capital, and then he's a real estate broker. He kind of spends the capital, chooses the apartment buildings that we're going to buy, does the operations. And so I've had thousands of investor calls over the last 10 years. And what I figured out over time is that financial freedom is the gateway. Financial freedom is the thing that people talk about. It's the thing that's like most easily understood. It's the first thing that people become interested in, right? Because it's numbers. Like you can look at how much money is coming into the bank account, how much money is going out of the bank account, what's my net worth, how much am I spending on taxes, right? It's very knowable. And then when people get into the world of talking about financial freedom, that's when they really start to see that financial freedom is like the foundation. What people really want is impact freedom. They just don't have the word for it at first. So we use the word financial freedom. And then what we start to realize is, oh, what I really want is the ability to direct my own time. I want to decide where I work, how much I work, what I do during my working hours. Am I able to take maybe a lower paying job because it has more meaning for me, or am I able to do locums or cut back at work or whatever it is, so that I have control of my time? And
Mhm.
then once I have control of my time, for a while there, I find that people kind of have this like fairy tale that they're just going to retire and sit on a beach and kind of do nothing. And no one actually does that. Let's be clear. Look at all of the people that, like, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, right? A lot of these names now have like political meaning or whatever. Like, strip that away. Go back to like Rockefeller, Carnegie. Like, people continue to work even when they're the Taylor Swift, right? Even when they are the most wealthy people in the entire world, humans love to be productive, right? So we have this fantasy that our financial freedom and our time freedom is going to turn into kind of staying on the beach all the time. And then we realize, wait a second, what I really want is impact freedom. What I really am looking for is the ability to wake up in the morning and say, what are the natural gifts and interests and talents that I have? And how do I want to spend my time so that I create something in the world that brings benefit to me and benefit to others, that leaves the world a better place than I found it? And that's the real freedom. And financial freedom is just the gateway language that people use to get connected into the communities that ultimately lead them to thinking about what is the impact freedom that they want in their lives, and how do they want to spend their time so that they create the legacy that they want in their life.
I love it because this is like a master class. It's like as I think about questions, you just continue to answer them. But as you see people stuck in that place of like, okay, I can understand financial freedom because I can put like what's my burn rate and my dollars and that. And I can maybe start to think about my time. How do you see people make that shift to that impact freedom where they can see what's possible?
Yeah, excellent question. And because I've done so many investor calls over the years, and I've stayed in, close relationship with so many investors, I have seen it firsthand. And I think, my own financial journey in life, right, the training that I have as a psychiatrist, I think I'm able to maybe understand it in a different way. And then the investor relations that I do, I find that people believe at first that it's an if then or a when. If I hit financial freedom, I'll have all these other freedoms. Or when I hit financial freedom, I'll have all these other freedoms, right? The first phone call might be something like, I want $10,000 per month of passive income. And when I hit that number, I'm going to cut back at work and I'm going to spend more time with the kids and I'm going to start gardening. What they find is that they'll get a small amount of passive income, 1,000 a month, 2,000 a month, right? Not really enough, like, honestly, to like truly change their family's budget, but they have the feeling of freedom. And that's when they realize, hey, I don't need to hit that number. I'm going to keep working toward that number, right? Don't get me wrong. I am not saying don't keep working toward that number. But what people will realize is, I can have those things that I want now, and I don't need to wait to hit this number in the bank account or this number that's coming in each month. And that, in fact, someone needs to be working on both kind of paths at the same time. Otherwise, they'll hit whatever that financial goal is, and they'll either feel a sense of emptiness of like, oh, okay, well, life didn't substantially change, because you have to change. Your mindset has to change. Your understanding of abundance, your understanding of what's possible for you, right? All of that has to change. The financial piece is just one piece of that bigger puzzle. Or they'll hit the goal and then they'll just move it. Oh, 10,000 isn't enough. Now I need 15,000. And they'll just keep chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. The alternate path is to be working on the financial freedom piece while working on the mindset piece, while saying, what piece of my freedom can I claim? You know
Mhm.
what? Maybe I can't go down to a 0.5, because of, I need to pay the mortgage and put food on the table and those sorts of things. But I can go down to a point eight and I can claim that, or I can step away from that committee, or I can give away some of my call shifts, or, whatever that small change is. And the small changes create massive amounts of momentum in people's minds that kind of gets them thinking about, okay, if I got down to a point eight, now I have a little bit more of my time back. What do I want to do with that time? And then, that sort of becomes this like self-reinforcing cycle that then motivates someone to continue to work on the financial freedom piece. And then the cycle kind of continues. That's the pattern that I have seen over and over and over is people think they need to hit a number. As they're working on that number, they realize that they can work on the financial piece while they're working on the time and the impact piece. And that in fact, the financial piece is probably the least important.
I absolutely agree. I wrote as you're talking, I wrote that feeling of freedom. And I think as I look at the Uncluttered Mind community, that's what I see. It's like we take ownership of one piece of whether it is part of an FTE or whether it's setting our day off or those, and it almost becomes um I don't want to use the word intoxicating, but it's just a taste of what's possible. And then once
Mm-hmm.
you're in that space, then you start to see what happens. Like maybe the number that I thought I needed wasn't what I needed. So it's interesting to hear that reflected in those investor calls as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as we start to look at how life can be. So one of the things I've loved about you is how visioning plays into this whole role and how that's sort of impacted how I've looked at my world. When did you start to use visioning as a tool of understanding what was possible for you and for your impact and your legacy?
This is such a good topic. I love talking about this. So thank you for bringing it up. This too was organic, right? Very few of these things were there like big bang moments in my life where everything kind of came together, just kind of, gradual growth. So at first I didn't even know to call it visioning. I just called it goal setting. I would say it started in 2016, 2017. I had a sense that at the end of the year, I should create my goals for the next year. And in the beginning, I would just kind of spend probably an hour very informally. I might write it in an email to myself or maybe on a piece of paper. And then that's about it. I would have some sense. And a lot of it was like things that, were kind of foregone conclusions, like finish the next year of medical school, finish the next year of residency. But some of them were like, acquire this many properties or save this amount of money or go on this vacation or, whatever it was. And then around probably 2018, 2019, I had done it several years in a row, and I would go back and I would look at what I had written. And I had written it, say December 31st of the prior year. I hadn't looked at it a single time. And then I looked at it again December 31st of the next year, and I would be like stunned because I would remember when I had written it that some of the things I had wrote down were huge stretch goals. Like they almost seemed silly when I wrote them down, and then they had come true. And I was like, wait a second. I wonder if I put more time and intentionality around this, if I could get even better outcomes. So then I started having specific domains, right? What are my goals for my personal growth? What are my goals for my spirituality, my health, my marriage, my children, my finances, my profession, right? Kind of the big domains in life. And I started just tracking it in my Google Drive. So I have spreadsheets going back to about 2018, 2019, where I would track them. And at that point, I was checking on it maybe once a quarter or so. At this point, it's still very just like on a whim, right? I might get a sense of like, oh, I should take a look at my document, or it's my birthday, I'll take a look at things, just very, very casual at this point. And I started to get this growing sense of, oh my gosh, the stuff I write down comes true. And then it became sort of this joke with my husband of like, we have to be careful what we write down because if we write it down, it is going to come true. And I never had a sense throughout any of this that like I was special or that I was the chosen one or anything like that. It was very much like, oh, this is available to all humans. This is what separates us from all of the other animals. All of the other animals go on instinct and primal behavior and all of these things. And this unique thing that we have as humans is that we can think about the future. Very few other animals can do that. We can think about the future and what we want the future to look like. And that's when I started to say, oh, I keep using things like, what do I want the future to look like? I'm actually going to start doing that. So instead of writing down goals, it became that I would see myself in the future. And that's when I really started calling it visioning. And I would, you can play with all of the variables, right? What do you want to see? What do you want your life to look like at the end of your life? What do you want your life to look like 25 years from now, 10 years from now, 3 years from now, 1 year from now? What do you want your life to look like this evening, right? You can see yourself in the evening taking care of yourself, interacting with your family, having energy if you're getting through a call shift, right? Like whatever it is. And then you can do it in each domain. So you can say, what do I want my life to look like 3 years from now in my marriage? And you close your eyes, and for some people they actually see images. They see maybe like pictures. Some people see like movies, like little clips of movies. I've learned over time talking to a lot of people about visioning that some people don't actually see anything and they sort of feel like they're doing it the wrong way, and you're not. Some people just have like a feeling, but you're connecting to that future version of yourself. And from a neurological perspective, right, not just like woo woo, I'm going to wish it into existence, but from true brain chemistry, our brains do not know the difference between what we see in real life and what we see in our imagination. So when we see ourselves in the future doing the thing that we want to do, having the outcome that we want to have, being the person that we want to be, we start to activate those neural networks in our brain, and then we move toward them. Some of it is conscious, right? We have certain milestones we want to hit, certain things we want to do. And then some of it is unconscious because it becomes a part of our identity. And as we're making decisions, our mind will say, is that part of your identity? Is that who you really are? Is that moving toward the version of yourself that you want to be? And that is really when visioning like really, kind of exploded for me. And now I spend a lot of my time visioning. I go over my vision at least once a quarter. I have a document that's like the first icon on my phone. So I like read it when I have spare time here and there. I'm constantly editing it and like moving it forward, refining it. And if I had to pick one thing that was the most important thing that led to the success that I have today, it would be visioning, which at first I called goal setting. Now I called visioning. If I had to pick one thing, that would be it.
So what was it? And I love that. I love how our words around how we use tools, so goal setting to visioning and then to really seeing that impact, how that changes as we understand more about that. What was it? Because I remember in November of 2023 when you decided to do a visioning workshop for physicians. What was it that made you take that from a tool you were using that clearly had huge impact for you, and what was it that made you decide to share that with a broader group? Because up to that point, you really hadn't been interested in coaching, and in fact, people had approached you. What
Mm-hmm.
was it that changed at that point?
Yeah. So at that point, as part of Black Swan Real Estate, we were doing monthly what we call community power hours. So there's Zoom calls where we would teach on a particular topic. It might be like how to purchase a single family home, or how to get a commercial loan, or state of the market, just anything, kind of real estate related. And each year at the end of the year, we would do goal setting, usually in November and December. We would do like a two-part goal setting. And exactly as you mentioned, a lot of people had asked for coaching over those years. And I just sort of would like laugh it off of like, oh, that's so kind of you. I appreciate the thought. I'm really busy running this big real estate company, and I have a lot of investors, so I really need to stay focused on that. And yet something that I would say to people over and over and over again is, when the universe asks something of you repeatedly, you should probably answer the call, whether that's a religious belief that you have or just a nudge of like, hey, if I'm hearing this thing over and over and over, it probably means it's something that's true in life. But I would say that to people. And then one day it just sort of dawned on me that, hey, wait a second, all of these people are asking me for coaching and I keep saying no. I need to listen to the universe. The universe is asking me to do this thing. And so I just decided that I would do it. And I decided that I would do it in a way that was like, I can't lose. My very first cohort was just 8 weeks. It was already November. So I said, you know what? We're going to do our goal setting, but instead of doing it in November and December, we'll do it in just 1 week in November. This will be our launch into the coaching program. I named it Freedom and Legacy Blueprint because those are the two most important concepts to me, freedom and then legacy. I kind of talked through how people come into this world through financial freedom and then ultimately they get to like, well, what is the legacy that I'm building for myself? And I said, you know what, I'll do an 8 week cohort. That way, if I don't like it, it's only 8 weeks. Anyone can do anything for 8 weeks. And as it turned out, I loved it because it was bringing together all these different parts of myself. It was bringing together everything that I had learned from learning therapy in as a psychiatrist, right? Human development, all of the work I had done my own self with my own coaches over the years, the real estate world, the entrepreneurial world, the mindset world, it kind of brought all of these things together. And very specifically, when I created my coaching program, I did not do a real estate specific coaching program. And a lot of people were kind of surprised by that of like, you're so known for real estate. Like, why would you not do a real estate specific coaching program? And it's because I truly believe that real estate is the gateway to a big life. And I can coach people all they want on how to do a pro forma and how to acquire something and the debt and all of that. A lot of that we give away for free in our community power hours anyway. But what really matters is the time freedom and the impact freedom. And that if we could work on that first with people, that would make a bigger impact. And so we talk about real estate in the program. We have real estate specific calls, and any given night during our open coaching, people can ask real estate questions. Real estate is embedded in it, but thinking about all of the various domains of life is what I really believe moves the needle for people. And as it turns out, I loved it. So then we extended the 8 week into the first year, and then we went into a second year, and then here we are today.
And then here we are with lifers, right?
Absolutely.
What have you learned about yourself in this last 18 months of providing this space for physicians?
I would say the biggest takeaway that I maybe hadn't predicted is that our brains are wired to help other people. And we all have blind spots, right? It is a human a truth of humanity. It doesn't mean anything negative about us. It just is what it is. And when we listen to someone else and kind of what's going on in their life, the problem that they have, the coaching that they're receiving, our mind is so much more willing to pick up the lesson because our ego defenses are down, right? And then it can be many minutes into it before we realize, oh, this applies to my marriage or my finances or my relationship with my in-laws or my job or whatever, because our ego defenses are down. And so the lesson can come in a way that's non-threatening, right? That's why I love group coaching, is because our brains are wired as helping brains. And so we can often learn so much more by listening to someone else being coached than by being coached ourselves. And in a group coaching setting, there's room for both. And then what I found was I could solve my own problems much faster after I did coaching.
Mhm.
So I would coach in the evenings. I've always done very long coaching calls. It's kind of one of the things that's unique about us. In that first 8 week cohort, we would go for like 6 or 7 hours. I mean, it was completely ridiculous. And then I said, guys, this is not sustainable for you or for me. If we're going to keep this into a year-long program, we're going to cap these at 3 hours, which is still very long for a coaching call. But then I would kind of, as soon as the coaching call is over, I immediately like stay in my seat. I stay in the moment. And then I ask myself, what are the things that I would want to be coached on? And I coach myself.
Mhm.
And I can work on a problem all week and not get a breakthrough. And then when I think about that problem, as soon as I'm done with the coaching call, the answer just comes to me because my helping neurons have been turned on. And I never would have predicted that. And it's this like beautiful, I don't know, just this beautiful lesson that like when I am a big believer that when we help other people achieve their dreams, it is much more likely that our own dreams are achieved. And that is like a little microcosm of that.
I love it. And one of those ways that I think you have then turned that into a lesson coaching that I've received from you is that idea of looking back to a time where we had walked through something and how does that relate to what we're doing right now, and so using that as a tool for self-coaching as well. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's so much that I have learned as I sit and listen to others walk through their spaces. So, what a powerful space. If you were to go back, knowing what you know now, and go back to yourself, maybe pre 2016, where you really started to understand this idea of goal setting, what lessons would this version of you like to tell that version of woman?
Mm. You know, when I think about those years, they were really hard years, right? My husband was first he had a tech startup that was, very, very, very demanding. When I delivered our first baby, right? You think like the mom's supposed to be busy, right? When a baby has just been delivered. He actually had this like catastrophic problem in his software and he was awake for like 48 hours straight. I remember like waking up as I'm nursing our newborn, our very first baby, and saying like, aren't I supposed to be getting less sleep than you? Like they were just some tough years. So Nick was, doing full-time tech. We moved to Rochester. He took a very high-level tech position at Mayo. I was in my medical training, residency. We were having, multiple children. There were times when one of us was working like around the clock, right? Like we would be working our day jobs and then we would work on the real estate portfolio and then maybe I would have an overnight call. And I just had this sense that if we did that for a short number of years, that there would be a massive payoff. But there were times, a lot of times, like I don't want to sugarcoat that I just like always just walked around with this sense that like everything's going to be great someday. There were a lot of times that I questioned that I would get deep into like, what's the point of all of this? Are we ever going to have this big breakthrough? Like, man, we're taking on so much debt for these mortgages, or I never see the kids because I'm in my medical training, or like whatever it was. And I would coach the younger version of myself to say, if you spend less time worrying about those things and more time just enjoying what you're creating, you will be happier. And I would advise that younger version of myself to maybe believe in myself more. Like I had enough belief to do the work, but there was kind of this loop running in the background of disbelief or doubt. And I would advise myself to turn the volume way down on the doubt, to turn the volume way up on the idea that things are going to work out, things are going to be amazing, and to just enjoy the process.
When do you, and that is, I think that resonates so much. I mean, that idea, it's fascinating to me how we can get into medicine, we can do all those hard things, and yet there still is that sort of doubt. When do you feel like
Mhm.
that you were able to dial down that on your own in that journey?
It's still there, right?
Yeah.
It's still there. I'm very human, right? I have days that are horrible, I have hours that are horrible. And I think, what you alluded to about connecting to past successes, I have trained myself to do that so reflexively. So when I have a moment of doubt these days, my mind sort of instantly is like, think about a time you've been successful, right? If it's something with my kids where I'm like, gosh, I can't break through to this kid and I'm struggling. I'm like, okay, well, when else have I had success with like maybe a different child or a different relationship or growth in my own life, to remind myself that like I can break through this too, right? If it's something in the portfolio, right? Maybe it's a real estate decision that we've never had to make before, right? Our portfolio is growing. So we're often making decisions for the first time. And I can't say to myself, oh, well, you've done that before. And so I have that sense of doubt. But what I can say is, well, you did this and that and this and that and this, and these things are related. And because you've had success there, it's likely that you'll have success here. And then I think as I've gotten older, the number one lesson for me that has just been so soothing is the idea that everything works itself out in time.
Mhm.
Patience is so beautiful, right? Beautiful marriages are forged by sticking with it. beautiful relationships with children are forged by sticking with it for decades, right? Like my children are pretty little. I have a 6 month old, I have a 9 year old, I have every age in between. I hope that I'm in relation with these people for 70 more years, right? Like there will be ups, there will be downs, and I just have to stick with it. And the longer I stick with it, the better it's going to be. Real estate, right? The longer you hold real estate, in general, it gets better. You maintain it better, you understand the operations better. Real estate generally appreciates over time, the debt gets paid down. Just having a sense that not everything needs to be solved in one day, and that
Mhm.
when I look back at the big changes in my life or the big breakthroughs, they often took time, and that is okay. And when I feel that sense of like, gosh, my 5 year old is, kind of yelling at me and not going to bed on time, and am I a horrible mom and are things going to turn out? I'm like, yep, the other kids were doing that at 5 too, and at 7 and 9 they're great and they go to bed on time and they brush their teeth. Like it's going to be okay, right? Or if I'm, just acquired a building and we're in the thick of a transition and it's like everything's going wrong with the renovations and costs are escalating and all of these things, it's like, yep, this has happened many times before with other renovations. 6 months from now things are going to stabilize, everything's going to get easier. Tincture of time is the best medicine.
I love that. Oh my goodness. It's funny to me as we're talking, I'm like taking notes because you just you you relay knowledge and information in such a beautiful way. So it has been such an honor to have you here. So if folks, I mean, I know we can find you a lot of places, but if you want to share some of those places, and I definitely want you to give a out about real estate real life, because I know that mindset is such a big part of what you guys are doing, and that's a huge part of that weekend. So
Yeah,
how can we
yeah.
find you and how can we get to know you better?
Absolutely. So the best place to find us is meetblackswan.com. All sorts of resources on there about our portfolio, how to invest alongside us, booking a time on my calendar. Everything's all there at meetblackswan.com. And then Real Estate Real Life is both our in-person and our virtual event. You will be a speaker on stage. I can't wait to have you come and speak about legacy, right? About exactly what I was talking about, like tincture of time, right? And the goodness that we can create over decades and lifetimes. So very excited about that. Real Estate Real Life is our event. It's here in Rochester. If you come in person, it's September 11th to the 14th. There's an optional VIP day on September 15th. We have a virtual option as well. And it's exactly what the title is. And a lot of what we covered here in our time together. We talk a lot about real estate, about how to build and scale a portfolio, about how to hit those financial freedom metrics. And then we talk a lot about real life, right? What is the purpose of building this portfolio? What do you want in your time freedom? What do you want in your impact freedom? If you come to the in-person portion, we tour the portfolio. People love that. Existing investors love to see where their dollars have been invested. People are considering investing love to get that, like hands-on due diligence. And then even people who have never invested with us love to learn the lessons and take it back to their own real estate investing journey that they're doing. You can learn all about Real Estate Real Life at RERL2025.com, and you can use the code Black Swan for $300 off any of our ticket types.
Fantastic. Yes, I encourage you all to really consider this conference, whether it's in person or virtual. I think if you enjoyed this conversation today, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So, Elaine, thank you so much. And again, I am so grateful for you, for your friendship, for your mentorship, and just to get to continue this journey with you.
The feelings are all very mutual, Jenny. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mind Behind the Curtain. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear it, because often the answers we're searching for are already within us. For more inspiration and behind-the-scenes insights from amazing physician entrepreneurs, visit us at unclutteredmindmd.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram at unclutteredmindmd. The curtain's always open.